So you should, this is the first, usually I do this in person. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Right. So, oh, sorry. So share, that would help, wouldn't it? Usually I do these in person at the meetups and I've done one at the National Software Testing Conference. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's very disco. My daughter's helped me do it. Let's have a look. So yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for so much for joining us today. Before we dive in, I want to let you know if you've got any questions, I've got them sprinkled throughout this session. So if you can, please jump in with comments, reactions, or even a quick show of hands. I'd really love to hear your thoughts and your opinions as we go along. It's not just a conversation. It's not just a presentation. It's more of a conversation as well as we go along. So let's test it out now. Can everyone who's in the room give me a quick show of hands, an emoji reaction or a comment in the chat, introducing yourself, just so I know that you're with me and I'm not alone this evening, please. I'm waiting. Are they supposed to cut? I can't see the hands coming through. That's if anyone's actually done it.
You know, do the reaction. Don't worry, there are loads.
Okay, it's on that screen. Right, okay. I'll just go blind. AJ. And I'll just imagine. Yeah, so I'll do that. So the agenda I've got today, I've got the introduction, problem statement, the situation we're in now, why this has happened, macro factors, why this has happened, industry shifts, is QA the least valued function, the skills mismatch, AI factor, what testers can do now, and what employers and community can do, and then the closing statement. So a quick intro on myself. What you can see on the screen, I've just done bullet points, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. So I grew up in a council estate, in a really rough council estate neighborhood in East London, coming from a broken home, faced a lot of challenges early on. Despite these struggles, I found my passion for bringing people together first as a house and garage promoter and MC, and where I thrived on the energy, the crowds, and the connection. And that same passion now fuels the work I do today. I've adapted my early years of networking and events into building meetups that unite people, career opportunities that they transform lives, in my opinion, and a community-driven recruitment business that connects top talent with the right companies. At the heart of everything I do, I genuinely believe that everyone deserves a shot of greatness, no matter where they start in life. Now I'm living in a little village in Chelmsford with my two beautiful daughters and my fiance, who's a genuine true superhero. Without her giving me the support she does, I wouldn't be able to work full-time on growing my business Optimal, organizing the meetups, hosting my podcast show, which is now called the Optimal Hype Show, all driven by the same energy I've had since day one. So how I give back, there's a few things that some of you know about, some might not. I've got my community-led recruitment company called Optimal, which is a community-led recruitment company built on the belief that hiring should be human first. I don't just match CVs with roles. I connect people to real purpose and the right role. I don't just do a placement, move on to the next target like some recruiters do, and then move on and forget about them. It's not the way I operate. Whether it's helping someone to pivot into tech or supporting a company and finding the right culture fit and the right person for their role, that's what we do. Optimal, and then I've got the Optimal Hype Show. Used to be called the QA Hype Show. Is a podcast show that gives people a voice to voice their opinions in the test and the community space. It's a space for real stories, honest conversations for engineers, quality engineers. I've got an engineering manager coming on in 2 weeks talking about quality-led recruitment. And then we shine the light on people behind tech. And coming soon is the Optimal Hype Live. It's going to run coincide. I did the ministry testing meetups that I love, the passion I'm going to keep doing for the foreseeable, which is purely kind of QA testing focused. And I've got this new QA Hype Live that's going to be virtual to start, which is cross-functional, like my role has kind of gone. So QE, engineering, AI, and DevOps all together in one place. So then there's that to help giving back to the community. And then I also offer CV and personal branding advice. I do a candidate mail shot where I don't charge a fee, and people that have been struggling to find a job, I send them out to my network, hoping they get good visibility and get interviews off of the back of that. So then we'll go into the problems, the problem statement, the problems we've got now, and there is a few. It's going to be a bit doom and gloom, and then towards the end, I'll give things from my side that I think can help improve and get us out of the situation. So there's a record number of testers in the market. We see an unprecedented volume of QA professionals actively job seeking now. The surge is driven by widespread layoffs, project closures, reduced hiring across tech. It's created a highly competitive environment where even senior testers are struggling to stand out now. There's some really good people in the marketplace. Permanent QA roles, sharp decline since 2023. Contract QA roles, from what I've seen and the data online and the roles I have coming through, there's even more of a decline than actually in permanent roles, which is again unfortunate to see. 150 to 450 plus applications per role is the standard now. And I'll give you a real world example of this. And I've done a post about this on LinkedIn. I had a role 2 weeks ago, and I've still got the role now. I'm at the final interview stages. 160. This is from the front end. What we see coming through. 169 applications. 27 people actually passed the screening stage. So I had 5 questions. One of them was, do you have 2 years asset management experience? These people, lied's probably the wrong word. They fabricated the truth and said yes to all the questions. So I spent half a day speaking to all these people, and no one was suitable. So if you're applying to jobs or you've got friends applying and it says 150 people, 300 people have applied, it's still worth applying, because I'm telling you, and I'm going to start doing posts on LinkedIn about this every 2 to 3 weeks, giving real world examples of the people applying are not right. I understand that people are desperate. They're going through a tough time. They've been in the market for long, some people 6 months. But I'm going to get into that further as we go on with the slides. So why has this happened? Quick show of hands, which I can't see the actual hands. So then I'm going to do this, but I'm going to say anyway, or drop it in the chat. Who here has noticed a slowdown in hiring or felt the shift in job market dynamics since the pandemic? In fact, I can see it. So you've got no excuses. Right, I can see hands. Okay. So I'll go through I'll work my way around one by one, starting a post-pandemic boom and slowdown. So after COVID, tech hiring surged, especially in QA and engineering, as companies rushed to digitize. Remote work opened up global talent pools and demand for automation skyrocketed. And I know this, another first-hand example is I had a different company called UK Tech Resourcing. 2022, I found 52 people roles on my own. And I know most of them were QA, probably 49 to 50 of them, and the other 2 were engineering. And all of the people I placed in 2022, bar a few, unfortunately, during 2023, the back end, 2024, and going into 2025, have either been made redundant or the role has been made obsolete because they've offshored now. But so by the late 2022 into 2023, the boom began to taper off, overhiring, budget corrections, shift in priorities led to widespread slowdowns. Many companies realized that they scaled too fast and began consolidating roles. Economic caution, hiring freezes, rising interest rates, inflation, and recession fears have made companies more risk averse now. Tech giants and startups alike have implemented hiring freezes, slowed down recruitment, and then the smaller companies, they seem to follow what the bigger companies do, and their roles get deprioritized now. Investors are pushing profitability over growth, which impacts headcount planning drastically. Then even going back to Brexit, IR35, the impact is there, and it was there, and it's still being shown now because it created uncertainty around talent mobility, especially for EU-based QA professionals wanting to work in the UK. IR35 reforms made contracting less attractive for both companies and contractors, shrinking the freelance QA market drastically. Many QA firms shifted to permanent hires, offshore models through consultancies that I've seen firsthand as well to reduce compliance and risk cost. Remote offshore is a big thing, and I've got something as a real example of somebody started today about this as well. Remote working's enabled companies to tap into offshore talent, especially Eastern Europe, South Asia, and India. And another example I'll give, I've had a long-term contract to start today. All the paperwork was signed literally last minute on Friday, and they started this morning. And I've had to find someone from India. Now, that's because it's quite a big financial services organization. They're very limited and strict on the budgets they've got. So I always try and keep any roles I get onshore as a first port of call. But the niche skill set they need for this engineering person couldn't find. So I had to go to India, looked in Sri Lanka and a few other countries, found someone in India. And obviously the salary we're paying for us, which is low, is a higher salary for them. So I've seen this firsthand, that remote offshore not as a first port of call for myself, but I had to do this to get the role filled because there was no one in the UK in the budget, and it actually is happening. So why has this happened? Industry shifts. So a quick show of hands again, please. I'll drop it in the chat. Who's seen QA responsibilities shift more towards developers or DevOps teams in the last year or two? Any more? Because I'm seeing it a lot, and I'm hearing about it a lot as well. Another hand. Okay. So I'll work around these again like I did with the last one. So shift left, DevOps integration. The shift left movement, as we know, I'm hoping we all know, encourages testing earlier in the development lifecycle, often during coding itself. QA is no longer a final gatekeeper anymore. It's embedded into CI/CD pipelines and part of the daily dev workflows. DevOps culture has accelerated this, with QA now needing to adapt to faster release cycles and tighter feedback loops. The shift has changed the skill set required. Testers now need to understand infrastructure, pipelines, and automation tools, and not just one tool. We're talking like 2, 3, maybe 4. Developers only more testing. I'm seeing this more and more, and I've got a podcast show coming out in 2 weeks with an engineering manager who the developers in that team he had at a big global comparison company. They used to do all the quality assurance work, and that's a really interesting show, and I learned a lot. And you'd be surprised at the perspective he had from his side as well. It reduces the resilience of dedicated QA teams, especially in agile environments. While it improves speed, it can also lead to gaps in exploratory and edge case testing, if not balanced properly. Offshore and nearshoring, as I've mentioned previously, I kind of touched on it. Companies are optimizing costs by moving QA functions offshore, India to Eastern Europe, and even nearshore to countries like Portugal and Poland. This shift is driven by budget constraints, remote work normalization, and access to skilled talent in lower cost regions. It's changed how teams collaborate now. Most asynchronous workflows, resilience, and documentation and time zone juggling. Some firms are even building hybrid QA models, core strategy in-house, execution offshore. And then you've got the AI automation hype that's on the tip of everyone's tongue. The rise of Gen AI and automation tools has created buzz around self-healing tests, AI-driven tests, case generation, autonomous QA, while promising many tools are still early stage or require significant setup and oversight. Some companies are reducing QA headcount that I'm sure if you haven't seen personally the people on this call, you've got friends who are in a situation where they have seen that, under the assumption that AI is going to fill the gaps, and it's often prematurely. The hype's led to massive confusion, even for me as a recruiter seeing it from the outside. Testers are expected to know all the AI tools, but the ROI isn't always clear yet. So is QA the least valued function? And I've done a nice little heart being taped back together because I thought that was quite fitting for this. So question for you guys. So let's be honest for a second. How many of you worked somewhere where QA was treated like the last kid picked at a football team? So show of hands. One, two, a few. Okay, fair enough. Let's unpack why that's happened, because I hear it a lot from QAs I speak to on a weekly basis. I think QA is seen as a cost center, not a value driver. QA is often seen as the line item to cut, not a strategic investment. You're not the shiny product feature or the flashy launch. You're the ones quietly making sure that everything doesn't blow up and go wrong. But when budgets tighten, guess who's first on the chopping block? You've got it. It's QAs. Success is invisible. Nothing went wrong. But if QA, if your, I was going to say Al, but if your job is done right, then no one notices. Nothing went wrong. Isn't exactly headline material, but it's not the whole point, is it? You prevent the chaos, but prevention doesn't get the applause that I think it deserves. It's like when an example of it is like if you're like being a goalie who never lets a shot in, but no one cheers until you're actually gone. It's first cut, last rehired, and then when layoffs hit, QAs are often the first out the door, as are recruiters like myself and talent teams. So if you look at companies, you get the QAs are the first to go. If not the talent team, we find to recruit all the people. And then when they go to recruiting again, they use agencies, then they get the QAs in last, and then they'll get the talent people in last just after or around the same time as well. So we're undervalued. I'm on your side because I'm in pretty much the same situation, not personally, but the job I'm kind of working in. And then hiring picks back up. Devs, PMs, designers, everyone gets called back before QA, as I've mentioned. It's a cycle that undervalues the long-term impact and quality and stability. Anyone here had to pick up the pieces? This is another question for you guys, just to make sure no one's fell asleep and there's still people here with me. Anyone ever had to pick up the pieces after QA got cut? Say devs are firefighting bugs, releases delayed, or customers fuming. Does that sound familiar to anyone? No, didn't see no hands. I was going to say that's not, it's not a QA problem. It is actually a business problem. So I've got some data I've pulled together. The UK market data. I've gone with UK because obviously we're focused on the UK audience today. And I've gone with QA engineer at the bottom of the scale and then head of test to cover both ends of the spectrum. I know obviously you've got STETs in between, automation engineers, test architect, performance engineers are roles that I recruit for, but we've not got enough time today for me to bore you about without going through all them. So the QA engineers, median salary, the average 45 to 60K. The 60K end will be someone who's got automation skills, maybe built frameworks. If not, they know they can script and not build frameworks, but they've enhanced frameworks. Permanent roles, again, seen a sharp decline. Contract roles have also seen a sharp decline, which is unfortunately more than what I've seen in permanent and what the data showed me when I've searched online. Applicants per role, as I've covered off, 150 to 450. There's another story quickly of a role that Netflix advertised 3.5 months ago on LinkedIn. So they advertised this role, senior QA engineer. I shared it with my network and then I reviewed the spec after. And anyway, they've advertised it as senior QA engineer. When you break it down and go into the role, they was looking for a mobile automation QA with Appium experience. And I think there's a few other really niche specific things. So I went back to them and said, why are you advertising your role? I went to the head of test for the role who'd shared the ad and the head of talent and said, why have you advertised as a senior QA? This is why you've had 800 applicants in 2 hours. It was an hour and a half. And I think the last time I checked, it was in the thousands after 4 or 5 days, and the ad was still running. I said, you need to have a title, even mobile automation engineer, mobile QA. It's going to take a lot of the people applying out for the jobs. But anyway, that's another conversation before I go off on a massive tangent. And then you've got head of test at the other end, median salary, 75 to 95. Permanent roles, again, as we all know, have sharply declined. Contract roles declined a lot more than what they had, but then there's fewer applications, which is self-explanatory because there's not as many head to test as there is QA engineers. The last head of QA role I had advertised when I did 4.5 months ago, roughly it was. And I went off the stats for that and the stats I found from the 3 places I said I've researched, including LinkedIn. So yeah, but there's still too many people applying. If you go back to 2022, then you're not going to get the numbers that you're seeing for both of these, not even close to it. I'd say 1/4 of the numbers of what's actually on the screen now. And then the QA, then I've got some graphs and some data. So let's get into the data side of things. Because if you're hiring or job hunting in QA, these numbers tell you exactly where the market's heading. And spoiler alert, the title QA engineer might be fading, but the demand for quality definitely hasn't. Because recently, when we was on holiday, I went away the back end of August. I thought, it's going to quieten down now. And then we went away, and then I kept it because I still keep an eye on LinkedIn because I'm a business owner. If I don't, then I'll be mad not to do that because I don't want to come back to literally no pipeline and nothing and no work. And then roles started coming through. I'm seeing back to work. So I'm still seeing it now. And it's a good sign because there is a lot more QA type testing roles coming through, more back to work. It's not where we need to be, but if it carries on, then hopefully, fingers crossed, Feb March next year, we should be in a lot better place than what we are now. So the side I've got on the left-hand side, the chart is job postings that feature QA engineer in the job title as a proportion of all the IT jobs advertised. So the QA engineer, as a percentage of IT roles, 2023, QA engineer roles made up 0.41% of all permanent IT job ads that are advertised. And then by 2025, that's dropped to 0.16%, a sharp decline in title visibility. So what's happening? Companies, they're rolling QA into hybrid roles. I've seen this from my side when I'm recruiting for positions, taking job descriptions, and the job descriptions used to be kind of that big, and now they're that big. And I'm just taking a lot more information down, and they're still paying the same salaries. It's ludicrous. So then the QA roles are more hybrid roles. So SDET are expected to do a lot more of the QA exploratory work. Test automation engineer, quality coach could be another job title. The function hasn't disappeared. It's just been renamed, screwed up, and then repackaged and sent out again. So I'm seeing a lot more fewer roles titled specifically QA engineer, but more demand on testing skills, definitely inside DevOps, platform, and engineering teams. And then on the right side, I've got the salary distribution trend for the QA engineer vacancies within the UK. And the median salary, give or take, according to the charts, and this is apparently accurate data, which I've gone with, and I've searched from 3 sources, 57,500, up slightly year on year from what I found. Top end salaries are reaching 68,500 to 80,000. And I can back this up because this is especially for people with automation heavy roles, someone who can code with different programming languages, working with up to date, I'd say modern, all the fancy stuff now that people are commanding, like Playwright, Cypress, JavaScript, and TypeScript, depending on the organization they're going to work for. I place people at the 75 to 80 mark. So I know the figures I've actually found are accurate. Candidates with strong automation, as I mentioned, CI/CD experience are commanding the premium rates, even outside of London now. Place someone from Derby, and he's working in a hybrid remote role. So he goes down once a month, and I think he come in at 79,500, I think it was, for that role 2 months ago. The QA is evolving. There's fewer positions under the traditional job titles, but higher pay for the right skill if you've got it, and broader skill expectations. Employers, they want a lot more bang for their buck now. They want multi-skilled testers who ideally can do automation, DevOps, even Gen AI familiarity is a thing I keep hearing about now. I've recruited for a contract role that I placed recently that was asking for them skills. And it was like when, showing my age now, when we first went to Selenium there was QTP and then went to UFT, then we went to Selenium, and it was like a year in the making. And people were saying to me, oh, can you find someone with 2-3 years Selenium experience? It's only been out for a year though. So I think that's the kind of stage you're getting at with Gen AI, because people don't understand how many years experience people are physically going to have. So anyway, so remote working offshore and has shifted demand across the regions. The non-London salaries seem to be catching up, which is quite a good thing to see. So I've got another question for everyone, just to make sure everyone's still there and with me. Has anyone ever had to rebrand a QA role just to get it approved or noticed by a hire manager to maybe change it slightly to an SDET or test lead or quality analyst role? Does that sound familiar to anyone? One hand, I'll take that. So yeah, it's not a title change. It's a shift in how companies actually value and define quality now. And then I've done exactly the same for head of test that I've done for QA engineer. So let's zoom out for a second, because if you're hiring for a senior QA leadership or thinking about stepping into a head of test role, this data paints a pretty clear picture of where the UK market's heading. Job postings on the left-hand side is head of test as a percentage of all IT roles in 2023. Head of test roles is quite low, by the way, which we would guess because there's obviously less than there is QA engineers. So the total proportion of IT roles 2023 head of test roles made up 0.009% of all permanent IT job ads. By mid-2025, when the data I've researched goes up to drop to 0.003%, a 2/3 decline in visibility. So these roles are becoming rarer and more strategic, often absorbed into broader job titles like head of engineering, quality director, or even platform lead I've seen come through. The job doesn't mean demand has gone. It means companies are consolidating leadership and expecting a lot more cross-functional oversight. Seeing fewer standalone head of test roles, as I'm sure some of you may have seen, but more hybrid leadership positions where testing is part of a wider remit, especially in scale-ups and product-led organizations. So the median salary for head of test 2025 is around 77,500, which kind of, yeah, you can pick it up from the chart there. And that from what I've seen and what they're saying, it's 10.7% year-on-year increase, which I would take with a pinch, maybe a punch of salt. But I've searched for 3 different locations and 3 different areas, and it's come up with the same stats. Top end salaries, and I can vouch for this, reach 79,750 up to 114, 115,000, depending on the scope and sector. And the higher end of this is being more with AI startups who offer you like 115K, 110K, plus you get equity on top of that. But then obviously you've got the risk of going to a startup company where it could go really well or it could not work out, and then you're looking for a role again in 6 to 8 months, which unfortunately does happen. Increasingly, non-London salaries are now averaging 80,000, slightly higher than London's 75K, 76-ish. This affects a rise in remote leadership roles and decentralized tech teams. Senior QA leaders outside of London are commanding strong packages, especially if they're automation. If they bring automation strategy, stakeholder management, and cross-team influence. So in summary, on the research I've done, head of test roles are revolving. There's fewer postings, but a lot higher expectations, broader responsibilities. Employers want leaders who can own the strategy, mentor cross-functional teams, and align QA with business outcomes. Skills in demand, they still are, and they have been for the last couple of years. CI/CD, resilience testing, AI familiarity is a massive one now, and security frameworks like ISO and IEC 27001. So anyone here be asked, another question for you guys, just to keep you all awake, has anyone here been asked to lead testing and DevOps and platform strategy all under one title? Or do you have any friends, or maybe you've hired someone into a head of test role that quietly became the head of everything? Okay, a couple of hands. So it is a shift. It's a shift I'm seeing from my side, and when I speak to people, and I'm seeing when I'm looking at the roles that are advertised online. So as I say, a summary is there's fewer roles. The roles are fewer and far between, but they're a lot heavier now, as in the specs. Even when I'm taking the job description and I'm taking the notes down, they've just grown. Probably, I'd say, doubled, near enough, doubled in size for some companies I've spoken with. So the big AI question: is AI behind the decline in manual QA roles? Who thinks that it is? Can I have a show of hands, please, for this one? Oh, coming through slowly. Okay, so it's the elephant in the room, in the testing room, and it is in conversations I have, AI. Everyone's asking me, like I know, is it replacing manual QA, or is it just changing the game? And in my personal opinion, and even in my job, people say, oh, you've worried about your job going, you could lose your job because of AI. No, I can't, because a prime example is it comes down to dealing with people and managing people's feelings and emotions. Say someone was offered a job, they got a counter offer, or something happened, they couldn't turn up for an interview because of a specific reason. AI wouldn't be able to manage that, and you need human interaction. The same you do for testers for these roles, which I'm going to cover off now. So there's a lot of people now I speak to are pivoting into AI testing, learning Gen AI tools just to stay relevant. And if you do know people like that, you're not alone. I personally would advise it. I've brushed up on tools in recruitment. I have a note taker that takes notes for me now when I'm doing meetings. It saves me hours every week, and it releases me to go out and find people for jobs and go out and meet and put these events together that I do. The market reality is manual QA roles have declined sharply in the UK, job postings over the last 2 years, and globally for that matter. But AI, it's not the sole reason. It's more of an accelerator, more than a root cause, I would say personally. The shift started years ago with DevOps, shift left, and developer-led testing. AI just poured fuel on that fire, and now I'm seeing fewer pure manual or exploratory QA roles, but more hybrid positions where testing is embedded into engineering or product workflows. So what AI is actually doing, AI tools now, they handle the repetitive test cases, regression testing, and even test script generation. This frees up teams, but also means fewer roles focused solely on manual execution. AI can scale, speed up, and standardize testing. but it still lacks the human intuition that you need, edge case thinking and exploratory depth that's required. Clients want testers who can work with AI from the conversations I've been having over the last 2 to 3 months, not replaced by it, as some people think. That means upskilling, not disappearing. The way manual QA still matters, in my opinion, is AI needs clean data, clear logic, and human oversight, especially in complex and ethical scenarios. Manual testers still play a key role in UX validation, accessibility, and real-world edge cases. And let's not forget, AI itself, it needs testing. And that's a whole nother frontier and story we can cover on a different conversation. So anyone here had a client say to them, another question for you guys, just to make sure everyone's awake, we're automating everything, only to call you back 3 months later because AI missed half the bugs. Do you have friends this has happened to? Mic drop. I'm on my own on that one. Okay, so my kind of final manager in that is automation's great, but it's not magic. And manual QA isn't obsolete. It's evolving. The risk of over resilience on AI, quality defined only by what's easier to measure. So let's be honest, AI is great at crunching numbers, which it is, it's really good, spotting patterns and running tests at scale. But when quality gets reduced to what's easy to measure, we start missing the point totally. What over resilience looks like, teams lean too heavily on AI generated test results, assuming coverage equals confidence. Metrics like pass fail rates, execution speed, and defect counts dominate dashboards, but they don't tell the full story. Exploratory testing, user empathy, and edge casing thinking often get sidelined because they're harder to quantify. I'm seeing hire managers now prioritize automation metrics over real world impacts. But when things break in production, it's usually the stuff AI didn't catch anyway. Quality isn't just what we can measure. AI, all for its brilliance, still struggles to grasp context, intent, and the full depth of human experience. And that's where we come in. Accessibility, usability, and emotional design are still best evaluated by humans, in my opinion. Over resilience leads to blind spots, especially in complex systems or diverse user bases. Here's an industry insight for you. This is what I found online. According to Microsoft's AI risk framework, over-resilience on AI can lead to costly mistakes, loss of trust, and product abandonment. In my opinion, the hybrid approach wins. The best QA strategies combine AI speed with human intuition, as I do with my job now on a daily basis. Manual testers aren't obsolete. They're essential for creating problem-solving, risk assessment, and ethical oversight. AI should augment, not replace, the judgment of experienced QA professionals. Has anyone here seen a bug slip through because it wasn't in a test script, but a human would have spotted it instantly? So show of hands for that one. I think everyone's going to sleep. I've lost them. I'm only joking. You didn't have to raise your hand anyway. I was only joking.
You're joking. Just have to tell you, they are reacting.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm only joking. So that's the risk. So when we only test what's that easy to measure, we miss what actually matters. So a real world case. This is a real world case. SDET salary shift. And I covered QA and head of engineering, but then in between, a bulk of the roles I do get are the SDET roles, the technical, like test architect type level roles. And there's 3 SDETs I placed in 2022 when I went through that peak of placing 52 people. 2 at the same company, 1 was at a different company. Unfortunately, got made redundant for whatever reason. So the main thing they've come back to me and says, I'm on this salary. You placed me at this, say, an example of 95K for the top end person with the Microsoft and Java experience. And he said, look, I'm on this. I'm looking for 100K, 105. I said, look, being honest with you, the market's changed a lot from when I found you that job. There's a lot of people in the market now driving salaries down, people over applying for jobs without the right skill set. So anyway, long story short is, unfortunately, I found them jobs, which is good, especially in the market we're in. It's a really good thing. And they're happy now because they can cover their bills, the cost of living going up and stuff. But then they've all took a pay cut for individual reasons, not down to their skills, not down to the person they are, down to the market and the economic climate we're in. So I thought I'd mention that, as I think it's good to give examples of what I'm seeing in actual here and now, rather than talking about a year, 2 years ago, because I think it's current and relevant. to the talk and to us, to you testers in the marketplace. So what can you do now? There's obviously there's more things in this. These are things that I think are important. So when I speak to people, when I do talks, when I do meetups, when I'm on the podcast show, giving advice, speaking to other people, I speak to a lot of talent managers and they give their perspective. And I've done podcast shows on this. These are the areas I think that you should focus on if you're looking for work. If your friends are, they should be focusing on. So upskill is important. All of these are important, and I'll say my top three at the end of it because there's three major things out of this that stick out for me like a sore thumb. You need to learn modern automation frameworks, Selenium, Cypress, Playwright. Playwright more than often is the tool of everyone keeps asking about that now. I've had most with Playwright and TypeScript because it's more stable if we've got that right, and then Playwright, yeah, because that's for the financial services companies. Then Playwright and JavaScript is now and again, but Playwright, TypeScript for the last 3 step roles I've had and filled, that's what they've asked for. API testing, Postman Rest Assured, CI/CD, and DevOps basics. Even I know DevOps basics, so I think as a QA, you should know the DevOps basics, the difference where they sit in to the software delivery lifecycle, and definitely do some research on that. Soft skills, again, as part of upskilling is important. Clear reporting, critical thinking, influencing stakeholders. Show your learning. If you're doing side projects, show that on your CV, on your LinkedIn, open source contributions you've done, internal improvements. These are all important key things that could secure you, maybe not the job, but at least an interview to get your foot in the door. Build your domain expertise. Specialize in one industry, finance, healthcare, game, and retail. You're interviewing for a role in different sector. Let's say, I don't know, let's say I work in gaming. I'm interviewing for a retail role. I would go out, chatbot GPT, Copilot, Google, speak to people, friends who worked in that sector to not know in depth, but have a good understanding of how that sector is different from the sector I've worked in, so I can better myself and give myself the best chance when I'm having the conversation and interviewing for that role. Understanding business flows, faster detect identifications, smarter test scenarios, shadow BAs if you need to, or read industry resources. Highlight domain knowledge in your CV and in interviews when you're there. I understand X, enabling better risk detection, as an example. Personal brand is one of my top three. I've done it for myself. I only started being active on LinkedIn January this year, believe it or not. When I launched my company, when I started doing the meetups and Ministry of Testing, and I launched my podcast show kind of all at the same time for whatever reasons. And I think I've gained 7.5, maybe 8,000 followers in that time in 8 months, roughly, give or take. My impressions have like just gone through the roof just from the content I put out there. I do all work related. Sometimes it can be personal, but then it falls into work because people seem to enjoy that. Share insights and tips. I do it. You need to do it personally. Even if you don't like posting, what you can do is, if you're connected with me or you're not, reach out to me via the end. I've got a barcode and I can like your first post if you've never done a post before, share it, repost it, and get you started on that journey to maybe doing a post once a week, once every 2 weeks. I post every day. You don't need to do that, but I do the job I'm in, the situation I'm in. I need to be consistent and doing it that much. Blog or microblog to reinforce expertise. Consistency generally builds authority and recognition with hiring managers. Community is in my top three. Again, it's massive. It's really important. Attend, host meetups. I host a lot of meetups. Well, I'm going to be hosting a lot more than I do this time next year than I do now. More work I'm taking on. But come to the meetups, speak to people. If you don't like speaking, there's going to be up here who don't. You can come in, sit down, relax. And then when you're ready, then you can engage in conversations. You can engage in the talks and things like that. Engage in Slack, Discord groups, Ministry of Testing, BCS. Come along to their events. I went to a Ministry of Testing event last year and the BCS one. No, this year even, in fact, both good. You've got Test Bash coming up in October that I'm hosting at. That's going to be brilliant. Being known in the community creates opportunities before roles are even advertised. So it's definitely worth doing it. AI we've covered off, but I think it's good to learn it. Explore AI-driven test tools like Copilot, Chatbot GPT, AI platforms, automate repetitive scripts, defect prediction and coverage analysis. Validate AI outputs. Human expertise is still crucial, and it's going to be going forward. Highlight AI projects in your CV and your portfolio. Show your future ready. So you've got the future ready skills, because you go into an interview and you show that you've done all this outside of work while you're looking, I think it puts you in good stead with the interviewer to show them that you've been trying to upskill you and better yourself while you've been out of work or looking for work. Networking is probably my number one out of my top three. So out of all of these, number one, networking, then community, then personal branding. The others are still important though, but they're my top three personally. Connect with peers, mentors, ex-colleagues, online options. You've got LinkedIn, Slack, meetups, offline conferences, and then you've got hackathons. Offer value when networking, share insights, make introductions, build long-term relationship, and then early visibility for roles. You can even get a little text message from, you could come to one of the meetups I do, head of test could be there, and you could get to know them, carry on the conversation on LinkedIn. When they're looking for a role, they might outreach to you, and then you can get an interview off the back of that. Tailor your CV to roles is self-explanatory, but some people don't. I know this is I could go into this in a lot of detail, but I'm going to keep it brief. So tailor your CV. My personal opinion is you'd have a 2-page CV as an average benchmark, but I don't stick to it strict as that. So if you're junior to mid, 1 to 2 pages. If you're mid to senior, maybe 3-4 pages is fine. I've even had someone who's senior, who's got a CV on 5 pages. I've secured them an interview and they secured a role because they had 25 years experience and they sent me a 1-page CV and I said, look, you've got too much experience to cram it into that to that small of a space. So anyway, got it onto 5 pages, put my cover sheet on, they went through the process and they've secured a role and started 3.5 months ago with a consultancy that I work with. So don't be strict when you speak to these recruiters saying, oh, I need a 1-page CV. It's a load of rubbish you don't. It looks nice and pretty, but there's going to be a lot of information on there that's required, especially if you're mid-senior level. So if you're rolling onto 3 pages, sometimes 4, don't stress about it because the people I've placed this year, if I went through and counted the CV pages, it's probably 3 to 4 pages, which is the kind of CV length I like to work to. Learn adjacent skills. I've mentioned some of these before, and the clients are looking for them. Expand horizontally, DevOps, cloud, security, and performance testing. T-shaped skill set. Clients love this. Really deep QA knowledge, plus broad complementary skills. Cloud basics, I know these, and I'd like to think a lot of the QAs applying for work should, and the head to test. AWS, Azure, GCP, DevOps pipeline, security testing fundamentals. Companies truly value testers who understand the bigger picture. So that's like a little roadmap I put together. You can start using it right now if you're looking for work or have got friends, you can pass this on to them. I've seen firsthand how these steps really do generally make a difference in the real world. Earlier this year, I connected with someone in January, just literally as I set my company up. They were looking to get back into work, didn't know about QA community, didn't know about the MOT and the event I was putting together. So anyway, they come to my first event, really enjoyed it, met a lot of people, had good conversations, come to the second event I'd done a 99-second talk. And long story short, now they're flourishing, writing blogs, really involved in the community, just secured a new role after being out for a very long time. And I'm not saying it's because of me, it's just because all the things I'm saying that do work, do generally work, and I've seen them work from the inside. It really works. So my challenge to you is pick 1 or 2 of these steps today, start taking action, and commit to showing up for your career and your community. The effort you put in now, it will pay off in opportunities, skills, and connections. Let's make it happen. Even if you're not looking for work, having a personal brand, I think, is important because if you're engaged with the community, when you do go to look for work, people look at your LinkedIn profile and they see you're active, they can see your content, they can see your posts. And I just think it's a good place to be. What employers and community could do, because it's not all about the candidate side. We've talked a lot about what candidates can do, but this isn't just about their responsibility. If you're hiring, leading, or part of the QA community, here's 4 things you can do right now to make a real impact. Hire for potential. Stop hiring only for tools and buzzwords. Look for mindset, curiosity, and adaptability. Give chances to those who are learning, growing, and showing initiative, even if they don't tick every box now. Essentially, it potentially builds loyalty, innovative, and long-term value. I've seen candidates with a lot less experience outperform seasoned hires all day long just because someone give them that shot in the first situation. Recognize QA, celebrate the invisible wins, smooth releases, zero defect launches, smart risk calls, and give QA a seat at the table, not just when things go wrong. Recognition shifts perception from cost center to quality enabler. Community insight, when QA is recognized publicly, it elevates the whole function and attracts better talent. Share opportunities, which is a really important thing. I hear stories of don't just keep the roles, events, and resources behind closed doors. Share the job openings, webinars and meetups, and learning tools with your network, or with a network on LinkedIn. Visibility leads to access, and access leads to equity. Some of the best career moves happen just through a DM, a tag, or a quiet intro, or a meetup, or via Slack. Just something as simple as a message on Slack can even skew an interview these days. Mentor juniors is very, very important. Take time to guide junior testers, answer questions they've got, offer feedback, include them in real conversations. Community leaders create space for juniors to speak, contribute, and grow. Mentorship builds confidence, capability for future leaders. So they could be a future leader one day. I've seen careers take off just from a 99-second talk, as I mentioned, even from a Slack thread that I've been involved in. Mentorship doesn't have to be informal; it just has to be intentional. So whether you're hiring just part of the QA ecosystem, ask yourself, are you doing these 4 things? Because this is how we build better teams, better culture, and a stronger community. What can we do about it? Key takeaways? You'll be pleased to know we're getting to the end now. I don't know how. They said the talk was, I thought it was going to be 20 minutes, and they said 40. And then when I put this together, it was literally like 50 minutes. So I had to shrink it down to what it is now, which runs at like 40, 42 minutes, I think it is. So what can we do about it? Key takeaways for testers: upskill, network, position yourself as a problem solver. For employers, invest in people, use AI to enhance, not replace. And for community, share knowledge, mentor, and create opportunities. Closing statement. I've got a lot more detail I could go in, but I'll keep it brief because I know we're running late on time. So the market's tough, but it's not terminal. QA is evolving, so must we. We fix this together or not at all, and we've been here before. We've been here before a few times now. It's up and down like peaks and troughs. So QA evolves, and so will we. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. Presented by me, and there's a barcode there for anyone if we're not connected on LinkedIn.